The guests froze as Ayo's voice thundered across the dinner table. Crystal glasses trembled. Mireille stood helplessly at the center of the room, fingers shaking her eyes, shining with humiliation, as her husband spat the words that sliced straight through her soul. "You are useless, Mireille. Absolutely useless. I don't even know why I married you." The room fell silent. No one dared breathe. Ayo's mother looked away, embarrassed yet satisfied. Ayo's business partners exchanged awkward glances. And Mireille, she stood there like a wounded bird, swallowing the pain she had been forced to endure for years. But destiny listens quietly. Because months later, the same man who mocked her would lie helpless on a hospital bed, unable to move, unable to speak, with every doctor shaking their head in defeat. And the only person who still knew how to save him was the woman he broke. Before we dive deeper, tell me your location and local time. I love seeing our global family gathered together. And if you enjoy emotional African folktale dramas, kindly subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story. Mireille lingered in the silent corridor long after the humiliation ended, her back pressed against the cold marble wall as she tried to steady her breath. The laughter and clinking glasses gradually returned from the dining hall, but the sting of Ayo's words clung to her skin like smoke. She had grown used to his temper, but never to the cruelty behind it. Tonight, though, he had gone further than ever before. Inside the hall, Ayo basked in the attention of his guests, swirling his wine as though nothing had happened. His tall frame and sharp jawline carried the confidence of a man who believed the world should bend to him. And for years it did. Successful contracts, glowing press interviews, luxury rings on his fingers, his confidence had been earned. But so had his arrogance. His mother, Madame Odette, leaned close to him. "You should have said these things privately," she whispered, though there was no true reprimand in her tone. "But at least she has finally heard the truth." "She needed to," Ayo muttered. "I'm tired, Mama. Every man deserves a wife who lifts him up, not one who drags him down." Odette only nodded, her eyes glinting with the slightest hint of triumph. She had never approved of Mireille, the quiet daughter of a small-town seamstress. To her, Mireille had always been a placeholder, someone who lacked the sophistication she believed her son deserved. Meanwhile, Mireille slowly pushed herself upright. She wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers and forced herself to walk back inside, pretending her heart wasn't shattering piece by piece. She smiled politely at the guests, picked up dishes, refilled glasses, and pretended everything was normal. Pretended she wasn't dying from the inside out. Later that night, after the guests had left, Ayo didn't even look at her as he loosened his tie and poured himself a drink. "You embarrassed me," he hissed. She wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "I embarrassed you, yes." "Your face. That pathetic expression," everyone noticed. "If you can't even hide your emotions, maybe you shouldn't mingle with people who have accomplished something with their lives." She swallowed hard, forcing herself not to react. "I wasn't trying to cause a scene. You existing was the scene," he snapped. Those words hit harder than all the others. Mireille turned away before he could see her tears. She went to bed alone while Ayo stayed downstairs, scrolling through business messages. Her heart throbbed so painfully she had to clutch her chest. She had married Ayo believing kindness would soften him, that love could heal even the harshest soul. But each passing year proved she had been wrong. The next morning she woke up early to prepare breakfast. She moved quietly through the kitchen, trying to avoid another confrontation. When Ayo finally walked in, still wearing the irritation from the night before, she greeted him gently. "Good morning." He didn't answer. He simply sat down, scrolled through his phone, and muttered, "Are the eggs supposed to look like this?" She forced another smile. "I'll redo them." He didn't thank her. He never did. Later that day, she overheard Ayo on the phone with his younger sister Dahlia. His voice carried through the living room. "I swear, Dahlia, she's becoming dead weight. She doesn't bring income, she doesn't add value, she doesn't even understand how business works." Dahlia laughed. "Brother, you should have listened to Mama. Some women inspire greatness. Others just take up space." Mireille sank into the hallway wall again. Her knees trembled, her breath hitched. How long could a heart keep enduring this? Still she tried, every day she tried. She cleaned the house meticulously. She prepared Ayo's favorite meals. She ironed his clothes. She volunteered at the children's center across town, her only refuge from the cruelty of home. She bought little gifts for Ayo using her small allowance. She apologized when she didn't even know what she was apologizing for, yet nothing she did was ever enough. That evening, Ayo returned in a foul mood. "My deal with Apex Group might fall apart," he grumbled, tossing his briefcase onto the sofa. Mireille approached him carefully. "What happened?" He sighed heavily, massaging his temples. "Their board is hesitant about my terms. They want revisions, more transparency, more reports. It's nonsense. They're stalling. She sat beside him, gently touching his arm. Maybe you could... Stop. He jerked his arm away. Don't give business advice. You don't know anything about this world. Her hand froze in midair. Shame seeped through her body like ice water. I'm sorry. You always are, he scoffed. But it never changes anything. He stormed upstairs, leaving her alone with her emptiness. She remained on the couch long after the lights dimmed, staring at nothing, feeling nothing. As the weeks passed, Ao spiraled deeper. His business troubles grew heavier, his mood darker. Every failure became an excuse to insult her. He blamed her for bad luck, for stress, for everything that went wrong in his life. You're useless, he repeated so often she began believing it. But she kept going to the children's center. There, the orphans adored her. They clung to her hands, drew her pictures, begged her to read them stories. She felt alive there in a way she couldn't feel at home. One afternoon, she received a call from the center. A group of children needed emergency medical funds. Mireille didn't hesitate. She took a portion of her saved pocket money and gave it away without thinking. That night, Ao overheard her telling a child on the phone that she had transferred the money. When she entered the living room, Ao was standing there holding her bank slip. What is this? His voice was dangerously calm. She froze. The children needed, it's my money. It's the allowance you gave me. You used it without asking me. She swallowed. It was an emergency. His expression hardened, and before she could blink, he threw the paper at her face. You don't get to decide anything, he snarled. You can't even run a household properly. How dare you donate money behind my back? You are not some hero. You are nothing. The room spun. She felt dizzy, faint. Her throat closed with pain. Ao, please, get out of my sight, he hissed. She didn't argue. She walked to the bedroom, packed a small bag, and left the house without another word. For the first time, she chose to protect herself. She went to her mother's small home on the outskirts of the city. Her mother held her gently, stroking her hair as she cried. Marriage is not meant to break you, child, her mother whispered. But sometimes, you must decide whether staying is survival or surrender. Days passed. Mireille tried to regain her strength, but the ache in her chest was relentless. Eventually, her mother encouraged her to return home and resolve things like adults. So she went back. But nothing had changed. Ao barely glanced at her. He greeted her with coldness, with clipped words, with the same disdain as always. The distance between them grew until it felt like two worlds separated by a single roof. By the end of that month, both of them stood at the edge of an invisible cliff, one pushed there by cruelty, the other by heartbreak. Neither of them knew it yet, but the cliff would soon crumble, and only one of them would survive the fall. The weeks that followed moved with a heavy, oppressive stillness, a kind of silence that collected in the corners of the house and pressed down on everything inside it. Ao's business troubles deepened. The bright, confident man he once was began dimming, though he tried desperately to hide it behind a polished exterior. Mireille watched from a distance, careful not to provoke him, careful not to breathe too loudly. She had become an expert in invisibility. Every night, Ao returned home later, looking exhausted, yet irritated, as if the world had conspired to disappoint him. He often slammed doors, threw files onto the table, muttered curses under his breath. But not once did he speak to her with warmth. One night after midnight, Mireille lay awake on her side of the bed, while Ao changed clothes behind her. She listened to the sound of him unbuttoning his shirt, the soft rustle of fabric, the muffled sigh of frustration. She dared to speak. Ao, is everything okay? His voice was clipped. You wouldn't understand. She pushed herself up slightly. You can talk to me. I want to help. He scoffed softly. You help. With what experience? With what skill? Just focus on your little chores. Leave real problems to people who actually know something. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. He switched off the lamp and lay down his back facing her. Mireille stared at the ceiling, blinking back tears. She wondered when exactly her presence had begun to disgust him. Or maybe it always had. 2 days later, Ao's life took another hit. A major investor pulled out of a project without warning. Panic rippled through the office. Ao stormed out of his building and drove home like a man possessed. Mireille was watering the plants outside when he rushed in, pushing past her shoulder harshly. Ao, not now, he barked. She followed him inside. Please just tell me what happened. Maybe he spun around suddenly. Maybe what, Mireille? What can you possibly offer? You think your little volunteering and your little smiles solve anything? I'm drowning. His voice cracked slightly. Marae's heart clenched at the crack. It was the first real sign of vulnerability she had heard from him in months. She stepped closer. Then, let me be there for you. That is the problem. His words were cold as steel. You think you can support me, but instead you weigh me down. I need a wife who brings something to the table. Someone capable. Someone useful. Her breath hitched. The words cut deeper each time he repeated them. He didn't stop. You are nothing but emotional baggage. I'm tired of pretending otherwise. The silence afterward was deafening. Marae stood frozen, her hand pressed instinctively against her chest. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. The look on Ao's face, a mixture of anger and superiority, etched itself into her soul permanently. She whispered, I'm sorry you feel that way. Ao turned away, grabbing his keys again. I'm going out. Don't wait up. When the door slammed behind him, Marae collapsed into a chair. Her body shook uncontrollably as she buried her face in her hands. The version of her marriage she had clung to, the hope that someday he might love her the way she loved him, finally shattered. But the universe was far from finished with Ao. 3 days after that explosive fight, he received catastrophic news. A lawsuit from a former business partner landed on his desk like a bomb. The allegations were severe mismanagement, breach of contract, manipulation. None of them were entirely true, but they were believable enough to destroy his reputation. Ao felt the walls closing in. When he reached home that night, he found Marae preparing dinner in the kitchen. The soft glow of the stove illuminated her face, gentle, tired, hopeful, despite everything. She looked up. You're home early. His voice was sharp. Don't act surprised. Haven't you heard? Maybe everyone will soon know I married a liability. Ao, she whispered, stunned. You are useless, he emphasized, stabbing each word like a knife. Every time I look at you, I see the mistake I made. Her lips quivered. Tears pooled in her eyes, despite her attempt to hide them. He continued, relentless, driven by desperation and bitterness. I would be further in life if I had chosen differently. Anyone else would have been better. Marae's tears finally broke free. She turned away to hide them, but Ao walked past her without a second thought. His footsteps echoed with the arrogance of a man who blamed everyone but himself. The following week was hell. Ao's legal troubles escalated. Half his staff resigned. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from associates demanding answers. He barely slept. His face grew gaunt, his eyes sunken. Yet even then, he refused to see Marae's quiet attempts to comfort him. One night she brought him tea, while he stared blankly at his laptop. You should rest, she said softly. Your body can't take this. Leave me alone, he muttered. Ao, please. He slammed his fist on the table, causing her to flinch. I said leave. She stepped back. I'm only trying to. I don't need pity from someone who can't even manage her own life. Go back to your little volunteer center. That's all you're good for. Those were the last words he spoke to her that night. 2 mornings later, while preparing breakfast, Marae heard a crash from the study. When she rushed in, she found Ao clutching his head, eyes squeezed, shut, his face twisted in pain. Ao, she hurried to him. What's wrong? My head. It's splitting. He struggled to breathe. I can't see clearly. He stumbled, nearly collapsing. Marae supported him, but he was too heavy. She called for help frantically. Their neighbor helped carry him to the car, and she drove him to the hospital at breakneck speed. Doctors examined him for hours. When they finally approached her, their expressions were grave. There's no sign of stroke, one said, no brain tumor. But his neurological responses are unstable. His vision, hearing, and motor functions are fluctuating unpredictably. Is he going to be okay? She asked, terrified. We don't know yet. Stress may be a major contributor. But the pattern is unusual. Ao stayed unconscious for 2 full hours. When he finally woke up, he was disoriented and weak. Marae held his hand, but he pulled away reflexively, still conditioned to reject her presence even in his fragile state. She stepped back, her heart bleeding. The doctors recommended keeping him for observation, warning that the episodes could worsen. Ao gritted his teeth, arguing that he had business to handle, but his body betrayed him again. His legs gave out when he tried to stand. He collapsed into a wheelchair, shaken. For the first time in years, Marae saw fear in his eyes, not anger, not arrogance, but real fear. And beneath that, something even more fragile, vulnerability. As he was wheeled into a private room, Ao looked at her, not with contempt, but with a strange, lost expression. Marae, he whispered weakly. What's happening to me? She wanted to hold him. She wanted to say she was there, but the wound he had carved into her heart was still fresh, raw, pulsing. All she could manage was a soft, trembling answer. I don't know, Ao. But a small, quiet part of her wondered if the universe was finally forcing him to confront everything he had refused to see. And another part wondered painfully, truthfully, if she had the strength to keep standing by him now that she was the ghost he had created. The hospital room where Ao lay was quiet, almost too quiet, an unnatural stillness that pressed against Murray's chest. Machines hummed softly beside him, their steady rhythms, a cruel reminder of how fragile he had become. His strong, commanding figure now looked small beneath the white sheets, his once sharp eyes dulled by pain and confusion. For the first time since the day she married him, Murray didn't know how to feel when she looked at him. Pity, anger, love, exhaustion. All of them swirled inside her chest, tangled and heavy. A doctor entered the room holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Ao, may I speak with you privately?" She followed him into the hallway. Her palms were cold, her heartbeat fluttered with fear. "We're not entirely sure what's causing your husband's neurological episodes," the doctor began slowly. "But his symptoms blurred. Vision, head pain, muscle weakness are consistent with severe stress-triggered neurological dysfunction. It's rare, but not impossible." "So, stress did this to him, not stress alone," the doctor said. "Years of compounded stress, emotional strain, lack of proper rest. His body is crashing. It's like a system overload." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We need to observe him, but for now he needs stability. Peace. A familiar person who can calm him. Someone who knows his habits." He didn't say it, but Murray understood. The familiar person was her. She returned to the room with her thoughts spinning. When she opened the door, Ao slowly lifted his head, his eyes half-focused. "You're still here?" he asked, his voice strangely small. She nodded. "Of course." He swallowed hard. "I didn't think you would be." She looked at him, realizing he didn't say it to hurt her. He said it because for the first time he was afraid of being alone. "I'm not leaving," she said quietly. For a moment something gentle flickered in his eyes, something she hadn't seen in years. But it vanished quickly as another wave of pain hit him. He clutched his head, groaning softly. Murray rushed to support him, but he flinched. "Don't wait. My vision it's spinning. Lie back." She guided him carefully, adjusting the pillows. He closed his eyes. "I can't think straight. I can't even feel my right hand properly." His voice trembled. Murray felt something break inside her. She had seen Ao angry, arrogant, dismissive, but never terrified. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Tests were taken. Lights dimmed. Night descended over the city, washing the room in a bluish glow. Amid all of it, Ao drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring half-formed words Murray could barely understand. At one point he whispered, "Don't leave me alone. Please, don't." Murray stared at him, stunned. The words didn't sound like him, didn't carry his usual bite or pride. They sounded like the plea of a lost child. "I'm here," she said, brushing sweaty curls from his forehead. "I'm not going anywhere." He relaxed slightly, his breathing evening out. When dawn approached, the nurse urged her to go home. Murray refused. She stayed in a chair by Ayo's bed, watching him sleep, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Her mind drifted to the past, to the children she cared for at the center, to the peace she found there, to the way their small hands held hers with trust. She wondered if any of that peace could exist again here, with a man who had done nothing but break her spirit. The next morning, the door swung open abruptly. Ao's mother, Odette, stormed in like a thundercloud, Dahlia following close behind. "What is happening to my son?" Odette demanded. "Why wasn't I informed sooner?" the doctor had told her. But that didn't stop her from snapping at everyone in sight. She stood over Ao's bed, horrified at the sight of him. "My poor boy," she cried dramatically. "Look at what life has done to you." Murray stayed quiet in the corner. Odette noticed her. "You," she hissed. "Why are you still here? Shouldn't you be packing your things instead of hovering like a burden?" Murray clenched her hands tightly, but before she could speak, Ao stirred. "Mama, stop." Odette leaned closer. "Ao, my son, tell this woman to leave. She has caused enough stress." Ao's eyelids fluttered open. For a moment, his gaze found Murray. His lips parted and something fragile trembled beneath them. "Don't talk to her like that." Odette froze. "What did you say, Mama?" His voice cracked. "Just stop." His mother stepped back, stunned. Dahlia's expression twisted with confusion. Murray couldn't process what had just happened. Ao had defended her. Weakly, faintly, but genuinely. Odette quickly regained her composure. This is nonsense. He is disoriented. He doesn't know what he's saying, but Ao whispered again, barely audible. Leave, both of you. I need quiet, Odette gasped, offended. Dahlia tried to intervene, but Ao pointed toward the door hand, trembling. Please, he whispered, go. Reluctantly fuming, they left. When the door clicked shut, Mireille stood there, confused, shaken. She had braced herself for more pain, more insults, more blame. Instead, Ao had asked his own mother to leave. He looked at her again, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Mireille, she stepped closer. Yes, his voice broke. I'm sorry. Her breath caught. Ao, you don't have to. No. His eyes filled with tears, real tears. I've treated you horribly. I don't know why you're still here. You should have left me long ago. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The apology hit her like a tidal wave. He continued, voice trembling. Everything is falling apart. My career, my health, my family relationships. And I pushed away the only person who ever cared for me. Mireille sat on the edge of the bed cautiously. Ao, you were angry. You were stressed. You didn't mean yes, I meant it, he said bitterly. I meant every cruel thing, and I hate myself for it. His entire body shook, not from illness this time, but from raw regret. She placed her hand gently on his. He didn't pull away. I don't deserve your kindness, he whispered. You're sick, she said softly. You need support. You need peace. I need you. The words struck her heart like lightning. For years, she had longed to hear him say anything close to that. But hearing it now, after everything he had put her through, it hurt in ways she didn't expect. Ao, she said quietly, I don't know how to respond to that. He shut his eyes as if bracing for her to walk away. But she didn't. Instead, she adjusted his blanket, checked his water, and sat with him until his breathing settled. The doctor later instructed her on how to soothe his episodes, how to reduce sensory overload, how to calm him when his vision blurred, how to help him regulate his breathing. And she did it all without hesitation. By evening, Ao's condition worsened again. His right hand shook uncontrollably. His speech slurred. A wave of panic washed through him. Mireille, I can't feel my arm. She held him, grounding him, speaking softly until his body relaxed again. He clung to her weakly, the way a man clings to the one thing keeping him alive. Don't leave me, he whispered again. Please, don't. She stroked his hair gently. I'm here. He exhaled shakily, exhaustion pulling him under again. When he finally slept, Mireille stepped aside, tears running silently down her face. She looked at the fragile man on the bed, the same man who had once called her nothing, who had crushed her spirit day after day. And she realized something tragic. In this moment, despite everything, he had never needed her more, and she had never felt more torn. For the next several days, the hospital became Mireille's entire world. The sterile hallways, the muted footsteps of nurses, the faint scent of disinfectant, it all wrapped around her like a cold, suffocating fog. And at the center of it lay Ao, shifting between moments of painful lucidity and terrifying confusion. Every morning the doctors ran more tests. Every afternoon Ao grew weaker. And every night Mireille sat by his bedside, her heart waging a silent war between memories of his cruelty and the undeniable truth before her eyes. He was slipping away. Ao's symptoms worsened faster than anyone expected. His body trembled uncontrollably during certain episodes. Other times he stared blankly at the ceiling, as though trying to remember something that kept slipping through his fingers. One evening, as the sky outside burned orange with sunset, Mireille returned from grabbing a cup of tea. She stopped in the doorway, stunned. Ao was sitting upright, clutching the bedsheets, chest heaving. Ao, she rushed to him. What's wrong? He turned to her slowly with eyes wide in panic. I don't remember how I got here. Her breath froze. You don't remember what? He blinked rapidly. The hospital. You. Anything from today. My mind is missing pieces. He pressed his palms to his temples. It's like someone is erasing me from myself. Mireille felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. She grabbed his hands, held them firmly. Ao, look at me. You're safe. No, I'm not, he croaked. Something is wrong inside my head. I can feel it. We'll figure it out, she assured him. But he shook his head violently. You don't understand. One moment I can think clearly, and the next, his breath hitched. The next moment everything goes dark and I feel like I'm drowning inside my own mind. Tears gathered in his eyes again. Ao, the man who had once seemed unshakable, was unraveling. Morale brushed his hair back gently. I'm here, Ao. I won't let you drown. His lips trembled and he whispered, Why are you still here? The question cut deeper than any insult he had ever hurled at her. She opened her mouth to answer, but the words caught in her throat. Why was she still there? Her loyalty had been treated like weakness, her kindness mocked, her heart crushed again and again. Yet she stayed because somewhere beneath the destruction he had caused, she once believed in the man he could be. She forced a soft smile. Because you're not alone. Not while I'm still breathing. His eyes glistened. He leaned his forehead against the back of her hand. He didn't say thank you, but she felt it in the trembling sigh he released. The next morning, the doctor returned with new findings. His blood work shows elevated inflammatory markers, he explained. This suggests an autoimmune neurological condition. It's rare and difficult to diagnose without very specific tests. Is it treatable? Murray asked anxiously. With proper care and emotional stability, yes. But the condition worsens drastically under psychological stress. Ao looked away in shame. So this is my fault? No, the doctor said firmly. Illness is never a moral failure, but your body has been under immense pressure for years. Ao swallowed hard. He didn't dare look at Murray. The doctor continued, There is one more thing. Episodes like his intense tremors, memory lapses, loss of coordination, often stabilize faster with assistance from someone the patient trusts. The word hung in the air like a fragile hope. Trust. Ao closed his eyes. I don't think there is anyone. Murray felt a sting in her chest. But then the doctor said, his episodes calmed significantly when you intervened yesterday, Mrs. Ao. That suggests his nervous system responds to you. Ao's head snapped toward her, disbelief flickering across his face. You helped me, he whispered. She nodded. I did what I could. His expression softened in a way she had never seen. Vulnerable, small, human. The doctor continued, There's a therapeutic method called sensory grounding. It works best with someone who knows the patient's history, habits, fears, triggers, someone he feels safe with. Ao stared at her. He didn't say anything, but tears slipped from the corner of his eye. The doctor left quietly. Ao wiped his face with trembling fingers. I don't deserve your help. She stepped closer. Maybe not, but that doesn't mean I won't give it. He exhaled shakily. Murray, I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything good between us. But seeing you here still fighting for me, it makes me hate the man I've been. Her heart twisted. He continued, voice quivering. If I get out of this alive, I'll spend every day trying to undo the damage I caused. She couldn't speak. The words struck her too deeply, too unexpectedly. Instead, she guided him gently through breathing exercises the nurses had taught her. When his fingers began to shake uncontrollably, she held them between her palms until the tremors eased. When his vision blurred, she spoke softly until the room regained clarity. When panic clawed at his chest, she grounded him with her touch and her voice. Hours passed like that, slow, intense, emotionally draining. At one point, he whispered, I'm scared. I know, she whispered back, but you're not alone. Meanwhile, trouble brewed outside the hospital walls. News of Ao's illness spread quickly. His business partners panicked. Rumors circulated online claiming he was mentally unstable. Investors began pulling out. Competitors circled like vultures. One afternoon, his assistant arrived with updates. Sir, you need to sign release forms. The board is considering removing you as CEO. Ao's jaw clenched. I built that company from nothing. They can't push me out. They can, sir. And they will, unless you show them you're still capable of handling leadership. He tried to sit up straighter, but his left arm twitched violently. His hands spasmed, his head spun. He nearly collapsed again. Murray rushed to his side, steadying him as tremors rippled through his body. His assistant looked horrified. Sir, should I call the doctor? Ao nodded weakly. Yes, please. After the assistant left, Ao broke down. His voice shook with humiliation. Everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed, it's all slipping through my fingers. Murray stroked his arm gently. Maybe this is life telling you to pause, to heal, to breathe. I don't know how, he whispered. I only know how to fight. Then let me help you learn how to heal. He looked up at her then with raw gratitude that nearly shattered her resolve. She had never seen him look at her like that. Not on their wedding day. Not ever. But before she could respond, his body tensed again. His mouth opened as though he were about to scream, but no sound came out. His eyes rolled back slightly, and he began shaking uncontrollably. Ao, she called. His limbs jerked. His breathing became ragged. He was caught in a full neurological flare. Murray quickly cupped his face, guiding him through grounding techniques. Look at me, Ao. Focus on my voice. You're safe. Breathe with me. In, out. You're not alone. Her voice pierced through the storm in his mind. Slowly, minute by minute, his body relaxed. His breathing steadied. His eyes refocused. When he finally came back to himself, he collapsed into her arms, sobbing. I can't do this, he whispered brokenly. I can't. Yes, you can, she whispered fiercely. You just need someone to hold you until you can stand again. He clung to her like she was the last anchor, keeping him from being swept away. And for the first time since their wedding night, she held him not out of duty, but because despite everything he had been, despite the cruelty, despite the wounds, she remembered the man she had once loved. And she couldn't let him drown. Not yet. The next few days unfolded like a long, trembling breath, a pause between storms. Ao's condition did not improve, but it stopped worsening so violently. This fragile stability came only because Muriel stayed by his side every second, catching the tremors before they took over, whispering comfort before panic could swallow him whole, and anchoring him when his memories blurred into frightening emptiness. But the emotional weight on her shoulders grew heavier with each passing hour. On the fourth morning, Murray stepped outside the hospital to get fresh air. Her legs felt stiff, her back ached, and her eyes burned with exhaustion. She hadn't slept more than an hour at a time. She sat on a bench near the entrance, rubbing her temples. A nurse passing by paused. Are you all right, Mrs. Ao? She forced a tired smile. Just resting. You've barely left that room, the nurse said gently. Caregivers also get sick, you know. Murray nodded. She knew, but she also knew Ao needed her. As she stared across the parking lot, her phone vibrated. A message from the Children's Center. The director wrote, We miss you. The kids ask about you every day. How is everything? Please take care of yourself. Her chest tightened. She missed them too. Their laughter, their hugs, their innocence. Being with them made her feel like a person again, not a shadow drifting through an unhappy marriage. She sighed and stood up, forcing herself back to the reality waiting upstairs. When she entered Ao's room, she found him sitting up staring blankly at the window. You're back, he murmured. Yes, he swallowed nervously. I got scared when you left. She paused. I told you I wasn't going far, I know. But when I woke up and you weren't in the chair, it felt like something inside me cracked. His eyes darted to hers. I don't want to feel that again. Murray stood frozen. For years he had shown her nothing but indifference. To hear him say he needed her even in this vulnerable state felt surreal. She approached the bed. Ao, I'm not abandoning you. He looked down at his shaking fingers. I abandoned you long before this. She didn't deny it. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon Odette returned. Her expression was tight with annoyance. I spoke with your company's board, she announced. They want to meet about your position. They said your condition raises questions about your ability to lead. Ao lowered his gaze. His jaw tightened, embarrassment flushing through him. Murray placed a comforting hand on his forearm. He didn't pull away. Odette's eyes narrowed. Why is she touching you, Mama, please? Ao whispered weakly. Odette scoffed. You think she cares for you. She's pretending. Waiting for you to be weak so she can gain something. Muriel straightened. With respect, Madame Odette, that is not true. Odette stepped forward, glaring. Then why are you still here? My son treats you with pity because he is sick. But when he gets better, Ao slammed his palm weakly on the bed rail. Stop. Both women fell silent. His voice trembled. Mama, you've treated Murray poorly for years. I allowed it. I encouraged it. And now I'm paying the price for that cruelty. Odette's face paled. Ao, he shut his eyes tightly. Leave, please. I can't deal with your anger right now. Muriel must leave too, Odette snapped. No, he whispered. She stays. A stunned silence filled the room. Odette's lips pressed into a thin line. She spun sharply and marched out, Dahlia scrambling after her. Murray stared at Ao, stunned. You didn't have to do that. Yes, he said with a shaky breath. I did. His voice broke again. You don't deserve to be treated like that. Not by them, and not by me. Her eyes softened. She remembered all the times she had wished he would defend her. She never imagined the moment would come now when he was at his weakest. Over the next few days, Ao's dependence on Murray deepened. His episodes came unpredictably, sometimes while he was speaking, sometimes mid-bite while eating, sometimes while trying to stand. Each time his fingers curled into claws, His breath turned ragged, his eyes lost focus. And each time Murray grounded him. One night around 2 a.m. he woke gasping. His body shook violently. Panic flooded his face as he clawed at the sheets. "Murray! I can't breathe, don't leave me, please don't leave." She rushed to him, cupping his cheeks gently. "I'm here, Ao. You're safe. Breathe with me." "I can't. My chest, my head, my eyes, everything's no. Look at me," she whispered firmly. "Focus on my voice. Focus on my hands. You're not alone. You're safe." Gradually his muscles loosened. His breathing steadied. His trembling slowed. When it was over, he collapsed against her shoulder, sobbing like a broken child. "I'm sorry," he whispered repeatedly. "I'm so sorry for everything. I hurt you. I mocked you. I treated you like nothing." Morel's heart cracked. This was the man she wished he had been all along, humble, remorseful, human. But she also knew apologies didn't erase years of pain. Still, she held him because compassion was woven into her soul, not as weakness but as strength. "You need rest," she whispered as she eased him back onto the pillows. He nodded weakly. "Stay. Please." She sat beside him. He fell asleep with her hand in his like a drowning man clinging to the one log, keeping him afloat. The next morning, a young man wearing a white coat knocked on the door. He introduced himself as Dr. Kamaru, a neurologist brought in for a second opinion. He examined Ao thoroughly, asked dozens of questions, and reviewed the previous tests. After nearly an hour, he turned to Murray. "Can we speak privately?" Ao's face tightened. "No, she stays." "Say whatever you need to say." Kamaru nodded. "Very well." He took a deep breath. "Your husband's neurological condition is real, but it's also heavily influenced by emotional trauma." Ao frowned. "Trauma, yes. Years of suppressing guilt, anger, and psychological strain. The body eventually collapses under constant emotional tension." Murray could almost feel Ao shrinking beside her. Kamaru continued, "He will not recover without stability. And he will not recover without emotional support." "From who?" Ao whispered. Kamaru's answer was gentle but clear. "From the one person whose presence he responds to. Your wife." Ao's breath caught. He looked at Murray with such vulnerability that she had to look away. Kamaru finished. "If you want to survive this, Mr. Ao, you need her, not as a caretaker, but as the emotional anchor you never realized she was." Ao swallowed hard. "And if she doesn't stay," the doctor hesitated, "then your prognosis becomes unpredictable and dangerous." Silence filled the room. A heavy, aching silence. Finally, Ao whispered, voice trembling with fear, "Murray, please don't leave me." Her heart clenched. She saw the fear behind his eyes, the fear of death, of abandonment, of facing himself. She took a slow breath. "I'm not leaving, Ao. But you must understand." Her voice broke slightly. "Staying isn't easy for me." He nodded, tears spilling again. "I know," he whispered, "but I'll do anything to earn it. Just don't walk away. Not now. Not when I'm finally seeing clearly." Murray stared at him long and hard. The man who had once mocked her for being useless now held on to her hand as if it were his only lifeline. And for the first time in years, she realized he finally understood her worth. But healing him meant reopening her own wounds, and she wasn't sure she was ready for the storm that would bring. The morning after Dr. Kamaru's assessment, the hospital room felt heavier than usual, thick with unspoken truths and fragile humanity. Ao sat propped against the pillows, his eyes half-lidded, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Murray sat beside him, hands folded tightly in her lap, unsure how close she should be, unsure how close she wanted to be. Everything had shifted. He was no longer the cold, untouchable man towering over her. He was fragile, confused, frightened, and painfully aware of his dependence on her. It should have made her feel powerful. It didn't. It hurt. Ao cleared his throat softly. "May I ask you something?" She looked up cautiously. Yes, his gaze dropped. "Do you hate me?" The question stunned her. She blinked, her breath catching. She had expected many things, anger, blame, pride, but not that. Not the raw vulnerability trembling beneath the words. "I don't hate you," she said slowly. He swallowed. "You should." She shook her head. "Hate is too heavy to carry. I've carried enough already." His eyes glistened at that. He turned away ashamed. "I want to get better," he whispered, "but I'm terrified. Every day feels like I'm losing pieces of myself." She moved a little closer. "The doctors said stress has been hurting you for years. A bitter laugh slipped from his lips. I thought I was strong, but I wasn't. I was cruel instead. Silence stretched between them, thick with memories neither wanted to revisit. Suddenly, Ayo's fingers clenched the bedsheet. His jaw tightened. His eyelid twitched rapidly. Ayo Mireille leaned forward. He blinked hard, his breath quickening. It's happening again. My vision, it's fading. His voice shook as panic surged. She grabbed his trembling hands. Listen to me, she said firmly, her voice steady, even though fear surged inside her. You're not losing anything. You're right here. Focus on my voice. I can't. My head. He gasped, chest rising and falling too quickly. It's like electricity running through me. Breathe, she insisted. Slowly. With me. She guided his breaths deep, slow, rhythmic. His fingers dug into her palms, nails pressing hard, as though anchoring himself to her presence. After a minute, his breathing steadied. His eyes refocused. His body loosened. He collapsed back against the pillow, a tear sliding down his cheek. I hate this, he whispered. I hate what I've become. You're sick, she said. Not broken. He shook his head weakly. I broke myself long before this illness. Mireille didn't respond. Not because she disagreed, but because part of her still hurt in ways she didn't know how to voice. Later that afternoon, a hospital social worker stopped by to speak with Mireille privately. They stepped into the hall away from Ayo's hearing. I've seen cases like your husband's before, the social worker said. These conditions progress rapidly when the patient feels emotionally unstable. She paused gently. Has he experienced significant emotional turmoil? Mireille pressed her lips together. Yes. And you, the woman asked carefully. Are you emotionally stable enough to support him? The question hit like a stone to the stomach. Mireille hesitated. I will do my best. That's admirable, the woman said, but doing your best and destroying yourself in the process are not the same thing. Mireille's throat tightened. He doesn't have anyone else. That doesn't mean you must sacrifice yourself entirely. The social worker softened. If supporting him brings back your own trauma, you must seek balance. Balance. The word felt foreign. Her life had been built around endurance, not balance. She thanked the woman and returned to the room, but the conversation lingered, echoing in her mind. Ayo woke from a short nap to find her sitting by the window staring at the sky. Mireille, he called gently. She didn't turn. Yes. Are you? All right, you seem far away. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. I'm just thinking. About what about us, she said honestly. His breathing hitched. He pushed himself upright, as much as his weakened body allowed. Are you planning to leave? Her heart twisted. I'm not leaving while you're sick. But after, he whispered, voice cracking, after I recover, will you stay? She looked at him, then really looked. His face was paler, thinner, but his eyes held something she had longed for years to see, honesty. I don't know, she admitted. You hurt me deeply, Ayo. He closed his eyes, tears escaping. I know, he whispered, and I'm terrified that even if I recover, I won't deserve forgiveness. That's something you'll have to earn, she said quietly. He nodded, though, fear etched into every line of his face. That evening, Ayo had a visitor, unexpected and unwelcome. His former business partner, Mr. Bako, stepped into the room with a tight smile. Ayo, how the mighty have fallen. Mireille stiffened. Ayo's fingers trembled on the sheets. What do you want? He asked wearily. Your signature, Bako replied, pulling out a document. You give up your position. I take over operations. The board will approve instantly. Ayo felt nausea rise. You want to take my company? Our company, Bako corrected coldly. But you ruined it. Now I'm cleaning up the mess. I didn't ruin anything. Ayo snapped, a flicker of old fire flashing in his eyes. Bako smirked. Your collapse is public. Investors are panicking. You're a liability. Mireille stepped forward. Excuse me, but this is not the time for who are you, Bako scoffed. The wife who disappeared when his money did, her jaw tightened. She didn't answer. Ayo's breathing grew erratic. His hand twitched violently. Mireille rushed to him. Ayo, look at me. Just breathe. Bako rolled his eyes. Pathetic. That one word set something off in Ayo. His body tensed, his eyes widened. The tremors struck hard, worse than earlier. His entire right side jerked uncontrollably, his head rolling back. Ayo, Mireille cried. Help somebody, nurses rushed in. Mireille held Ayo's trembling face as panic swallowed him. His breaths were sharp, shallow. A whimper slipped from his throat. I can't, he gasped. You're safe, she whispered, tears spilling. Stay with me, Io, please. After several agonizing minutes, the tremor subsided. Bako stood frozen, horrified. One nurse glared at him. Sir, you need to leave. Now. He stammered, backing up. I didn't mean... Out the nurse barked. Bako fled. Murray stayed by Ao, her forehead pressed to his. He whispered through labored breaths. Please, don't let them take everything I built. She lifted his chin gently. Right now we're fighting for your life. The company comes second, he swallowed harshly. I don't want to die. You won't, she promised. But inside, she wasn't sure. Not with how fast he was deteriorating, not with how fragile he had become, and not with how much more emotional weight she could carry before she herself began to break. Later that night, as Ao finally drifted into a restless sleep, Murray stepped into the bathroom, turned on the sink to mask her sobs, and let her tears fall freely. She had always been the strong one, the calm one, the quiet one, but even strength had limits. She pressed her palms to her face, choking on a whisper. How do I keep saving a man who broke me? She didn't know. But one truth rang painfully clear. Whether she liked it or not, whether she was ready or not, Ao needed her more than anyone ever had, and the storm she feared most was still coming. The following morning began with an eerie calm. Too calm, almost deceptive. The hospital lights buzzed softly overhead, and the world outside seemed wrapped in a hush that made every breath feel heavier. Murray sat beside Ao's bed, exhaustion weighing on her like a wet cloak. Her eyelids drooped, her body ached, and her heart felt stretched thin, yet she remained alert, knowing his condition could shift at any moment. Ao stirred slowly, opening his eyes. For a second, confusion clouded his gaze, as though he expected to wake up somewhere else, anywhere else but here. Then he saw her, and the tension in his face softened. You're still here, he whispered hoarsely. I told you, she replied gently. I won't leave. He swallowed hard. I didn't think, after everything I did to you, that you would stay. Muriel lowered her eyes. People don't disappear the moment things get hard. He frowned, guilt flickering deep in his eyes. I did. Over and over again. I disappeared from us. She didn't deny it. Instead, she adjusted his blanket, her motions quiet and practiced. She had become his anchor in every sense, though the emotional weight of that responsibility grew heavier each day. A nurse entered the room, taking vitals and noting Ao's tremors, which had returned in sporadic waves despite the medication. We'll need to monitor him more closely today, the nurse warned. Neurological flare-ups can escalate unexpectedly. Murray nodded, her stomach nodding with dread. Ao watched her, his fingers twitching. You look tired. I'm fine, she said, though it was a lie. He reached out his hand, trembling, barely brushing hers. You shouldn't have to suffer because of me. Her chest tightened. His remorse was genuine, she could feel it. But apologies couldn't erase years of damage, not instantly, not fully. I'm doing this because it's the right thing, she said softly. Not because I've forgotten the past. He nodded, accepting the truth, even though it stung. Later that day, a group of doctors, including Dr. Kamaru, convened outside the room. Muriel stood with them, arms crossed tightly. We have new test results, one doctor said. There are markers indicating an autoimmune neurological relapse, possibly worsened by chronic cortisol elevation. His nervous system is overreacting to emotional triggers. Murray felt cold. What does that mean? It means any intense stress, anger, fear, confrontation can spark severe episodes. Even mild emotional shocks could send his body into neurological chaos. Her breath shuddered. Is he in danger? Yes, Kamaru said solemnly. If an episode overwhelms the brain too quickly, it could lead to respiratory failure. Muriel pressed a hand over her mouth as dread slammed into her ribs. Another doctor added, he needs emotional stability, familiarity, safety, someone who can calm him before episodes overpower him. They all glanced toward her. The message was clear. She was his lifeline, even when she wasn't sure she could keep being one. When Muriel returned to the room, she found Ao attempting to sit upright on his own. His left arm shook violently and he grimaced from the effort. Ao, stop, she said, urgently rushing to him. I need to fight this, he muttered through clenched teeth. I can't keep lying here useless. You're not useless, she insisted, guiding him gently back. You're sick, his voice cracked. Sick or not, I can't let them take everything I built. The fear in his eyes was raw. Fear of losing his identity, his place in the world, his purpose. Your life matters more than your company, she said softly. He stared at her hollow-eyed. Does it? If I lose everything, what will I be? Her heart softened despite herself. Human, she whispered. Just human. His lips trembled, but before she could say more, the door opened suddenly. Odette stormed in again, face stern eyes blazing with accusation. This nonsense has gone on long enough, she snapped. I've spoken to lawyers. If Ao loses his position, the family name collapses. We cannot let that happen. Ao tensed instantly, his breathing speeding up, his fingers twitching. Mama, he tried, voice tight. No. Odette marched to the bed. You will sign temporary control over to me. I will handle the company until you recover. Odette, he cannot deal with this now, Murray interjected firmly. Odette turned her glare toward her. Stay out of this. You've done enough. Mama, stop, Ao whispered, clutching his head. Odette ignored him. You're destabilizing him. He needs real support, not your false comfort. Madame Odette, please, Murray tried again. But Ao's jaw clenched. His breaths grew shallow. His fingers curled. Mama, please. I can't. His voice broke into a sob. Still Odette pressed on. Sign the papers, Ao. His chest heaved. Stop. Now, she yelled. That one word shattered him. Ao screamed not from fear but from sheer neurological overload. His body jerked violently, his eyes rolling back. He collapsed sideways as convulsions ripped through him. Ao Moreo cried, grabbing him. Nurses rushed in, alarms blaring. Get her out, Odette shrieked. But the nurses ignored her. Mrs. Ao, talk to him now, one nurse ordered. Murray cupped his trembling cheeks, her voice trembling. Ao, listen to me. I'm here. You're safe. Focus on my voice. Just breathe, Ao, breathe with me. His limbs twitched violently, but his breathing began syncing with hers second by agonizing second. His fingers unclenched. His body slowly relaxed into her arms. The episode passed. Ao lay limp, drenched in sweat, lips trembling. Odette stared horrified. You almost killed him, Murray said softly, but with a power Odette had never heard from her. Odette stumbled backward. Dahlia, pale and shaking, appeared in the doorway, having watched everything unfold. Mama, we need to go, Dahlia whispered, grabbing her arm. Odette didn't argue this time. They left quietly. Hours later, Ao woke again, weak as a child. Murray, he croaked. She touched his forehead. I'm here. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't want her to see me like that. You shouldn't have been forced to, she whispered. He stared up at her. I don't want to die. You won't, she said firmly. But the fear in her chest told another story. He let out a shaky breath. Every time an episode hits me, I feel like I'm disappearing. Like the world is slipping through my fingers. And the only thing that pulls me back is you. Her eyes softened, though pain flickered inside them. He reached for her hand weakly. Why are you still saving me? After everything I did to destroy you, tears burned behind her eyes. I don't know, she whispered truthfully. Compassion maybe, habit, history, or maybe because I don't want to see anyone suffer, not even you. Ao breathed shakily. I don't deserve you. And for the first time, Moreo didn't deny it, because he was finally telling the truth. That night after Ao fell asleep, Murray stepped into the hallway, leaning against the wall as fatigue washed over her. She closed her eyes, chest tight with emotion. A soft voice approached. Mrs. Ao. She opened her eyes to see Dr. Kamaru. He hesitated before speaking. I saw what happened with his mother. You handled it astonishingly well. Did I? She said quietly. Because I feel like I'm falling apart. Kamaru's voice softened. I know this is difficult. But what you're doing is saving his life. Her eyes filled again. But what about mine? The doctor exhaled. Sometimes life asks more of us than feels fair. But I promise you your presence is the only thing keeping him grounded right now. She nodded slowly. And deep inside she already knew. But knowing didn't make it any easier. She wiped her tears and returned to the room, sitting at Ao's bedside. He slept peacefully for once. She watched his chest rise and fall, wondering how long she could carry him like this. How long before she too collapsed under the weight. One thing she knew for certain, this storm wasn't over. It was only beginning. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the hospital blinds, casting pale stripes across the bed where Ao slept. He looked so fragile, nothing like the powerful man she had once married. His breaths came softly, evenly this time, and for a moment, standing there in the quiet, Mireille allowed herself to feel the weight of everything pressing on her chest. She had saved him again last night, and the night before. And the night before that, her strength had become his lifeline, but that same strength was slowly draining from her, leaving her brittle in ways she tried hard to hide. When Ao finally stirred awake, his eyes fluttering open, he glanced around in confusion until they landed on her. Relief softened his face instantly. "You're here," he whispered. She nodded. He blinked, studying her carefully. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine," she said. "You're not," he replied, voice shaking. "I can see it." She avoided his gaze. "Rest, Io. You need your strength." He caught her wrist gently, weakly, but enough to make her stop. "I need you, Mireille. And I know I don't deserve it, but I'm terrified of you burning out because of me." She swallowed, touched by the honesty, yet also pained by the reminder of how unfairly life had turned. "Let's just focus on getting you better." He nodded, though his eyes held a quiet sadness. Later that morning, a hospital volunteer knocked gently on the door. It was a young girl named Miriam, soft-spoken, carrying a small basket of donated flowers. "May I come in?" she asked. "Of course," Mireille said, stepping aside. Miriam placed a bouquet on the table beside Ao's bed. These were donated by the Children's Charity Center. Mireille froze. The volunteer smiled. "They said to give them to the patient in room 306 and tell his wife they miss her." Emotions surged through Mireille so abruptly she had to look away. Ao watched her carefully. "You didn't tell me they send you gifts." "It's nothing," she murmured. "It's not nothing." His voice softened. "You made a life outside of me, a good one." She shrugged lightly. "They're children. I help where I can." But deep inside, she knew the truth. The center had become the only place where her heart felt seen. After Miriam left, Ao asked quietly, "Did you ever resent me for pulling you away from that world?" She hesitated. "Not at first." And later she exhaled shakily. "I resented losing pieces of myself." "Yes." Pain flickered across his face. "I held you back from the one thing that made you feel alive." "You didn't hold me back," she corrected gently. "You just didn't see me." Ao closed his eyes, breathing deeply. "I am so sorry for that." She nodded but said nothing more. Just before noon, the medical team gathered for Ao's neurological assessment. Dr. Kamaru explained the next steps. "We'll run a new scan today," he said. "But there's something else we must discuss." Ao tensed. Kamaru continued, "Your episodes intensify with confrontation and emotional distress. If you want to recover, we must eliminate all sources of destabilizing stress." Mireille didn't miss the pointed glance he gave her, not accusing but concerned. "If there are unresolved emotional issues," he continued, "they need addressing. Your mind is holding too much conflict. It manifests physically." Ao nodded, trembling slightly. "I understand." But Kamaru turned to Mireille next. "Mrs. Ao, please step outside with me." She followed him into the hall, nerves coiled tight. Kamaru sighed softly. "He is improving only because of your presence. But I need to ask, are you stable enough to keep being that presence?" Mireille's breath caught. "I'll do what's needed." "That's not what I ask," Kamaru said gently. "Are you okay?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she whispered, I'm trying." He nodded, sympathetic. "If you break down, he will follow. If you stay strong, he gets a chance. But that means you need breaks, rest, emotional support of your own." She inhaled deeply. "I'll try. That's all I can ask," he said. "But please don't ignore your own suffering. You're not invisible here." Invisible. The word hit like a memory, one she had tried to bury. When she returned to the room, she found Ao awake, staring anxiously at the door. "Did I do something wrong?" he blurted. "No," she said. "The doctor is concerned about both of us." He nodded slowly. "Good. Someone should be." She blinked, surprised. Ao frowned, looking down at his trembling fingers. "Mireille, what's happening to me? Every day I feel myself slipping further. My strength, my memory, my identity. It's like I'm being peeled apart." She sat beside him. "You're not slipping. You're overwhelmed." "I lied for years," he whispered. "Not to you, but to myself. I kept telling myself I was strong, that nothing could touch me, that emotions were weakness. That vulnerability made a man fragile." His eyes filled with tears. "But look at me now. I'm the most fragile I've ever been. And it's the first time I've been truly honest." Her breath caught. Ao continued, voice raw. "Do you know the real reason I treated you the way I did?" She hesitated. I thought you didn't respect me, or that you wanted to control me. That was part of it, he admitted painfully. But the deeper truth is uglier. She waited. I was jealous, he whispered. She stared. Of me, yes. He swallowed hard. You were kind without trying. You had a heart I didn't know how to understand. People gravitated to you, children, neighbors, strangers. You made them feel safe. I never learned how to do that. Tears pricked her eyes. I felt small beside you, he said, so I made you smaller to feel big. Silence, heavy, suffocating silence. Morale's chest tightened as the words sank in. All the years of pain, and now the truth laid bare. He looked at her eyes shimmering. I destroyed what I loved most because I didn't know how to be worthy of it. She covered her mouth overwhelmed. Ao reached out shakily. I don't expect forgiveness, not now, maybe not ever. But if I survive this, I want to be better. I want to learn. I want to love you the way you deserve from the beginning. Her heart pulled painfully in two directions, toward hope and away from it. She whispered, Ao, I don't know if I can go back to who we were. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheek. Then let me become someone new, someone you can trust again. She looked away, fighting tears. I don't know, she repeated. I'll wait, he said softly, for as long as it takes. Before she could respond, his fingers twitched. Then his hand jerked violently. Then his entire right side went rigid. Ao, she gasped, grabbing him. His eyes wide in terror, swallowing his expression. No, Morale, my chest, my arm, I can't, my body. A seizure-like tremor ripped through him. Nurses rushed in. Morale, keep talking to him, one shouted. She cupped his face, tears streaming. I'm here, I'm not leaving. Ao, stay with me, breathe. Please breathe. His body shook uncontrollably. His eyes rolled. His breath faltered. Don't you dare give up, she cried, gripping his hand. Slowly, agonizingly, the tremors subsided. Ao collapsed. Morale sobbed, forehead pressed to his. Please, she whispered, voice breaking. Please don't leave me like this. His fingers twitched weakly, curling around hers, and through cracked lips he whispered, I won't. Not if you're still here. Her tears fell freely. Because in that moment she realized the truth she had been avoiding. She was saving him, but he was breaking her open in ways she wasn't ready for, and the hardest decisions still lay ahead. The night after Ao's severe seizure felt like one long trembling breath. Morale barely left his side. Every time his chest rose and fell, she monitored it. Every small twitch of his fingers made her heart lurch. Even when he slept, she felt the weight of his fragility pressing down on her. She couldn't forget how close he had come to slipping away, and how desperately he had clung to her voice like it was the only thread connecting him to life. By dawn, he stirred softly, wincing at the pale morning light leaking in through the blinds. His voice, raw and fragmented, cracked the silence. Morale, are you awake? She snapped to attention instantly. Yes, I'm here. His eyes found her exhausted red, but full of fear and gratitude tangled together. I thought I didn't make it. You did, she said, her voice thick. But you scared me. He swallowed hard. I scare myself. She reached out gently, adjusting his pillow. His hand moved clumsily toward hers, trembling, searching. When his fingers brushed hers, she froze but didn't pull away. I'm sorry, he whispered. I keep making everything harder for you. You're sick, she said. That's not your fault. But the rest was, he murmured, pain flickering in his eyes. And every time I see you here still helping me, I hate the version of me you had to survive. She didn't reply. Because she didn't know what to say. Because part of her agreed. Because another part still grieved. An hour later, Dr. Kamaru returned with the scan results. He held a tablet in his hands, his expression unusually grave. We have identified the autoimmune pathogen, he said. It's attacking your neurological network aggressively. Ao's pulse jumped. So, what does that mean? It means you're in a critical window, the doctor replied. If your stress levels spike again, if you have another episode like last night, your body might not recover the same way. Morale's hand flew to her mouth. Ao's lips parted in fear. Are you saying I could lose function permanently? That the doctor said carefully, or the episodes could turn fatal. Silence hung heavy in the air. Morale couldn't breathe. Ao stared into nothing. Then the doctor added something unexpected. But there is an unconventional approach I believe may help. They both looked up. Memory stabilization therapy, Kamaru explained. Neurological responses to emotional triggers have a strong psychosomatic link. If we help your brain revisit moments of severe emotional trauma in a controlled environment, and then replace the fear response with grounding and safety, it can slow the autoimmune attacks. Ao swallowed. And what trauma are we talking about? Kamaru glanced at Mireille. Her eyes widened. His childhood, his marriage, Kamaru said softly. Ao stiffened. Mireille's heart clenched. This illness, the doctor continued, didn't come out of nowhere. Years of emotional suppression, guilt, shame, fear, they've overloaded his neurological system. The only way he gets better is if he faces those internal battles. Ao whispered. I don't know how. You don't have to do it alone, Kamaru said, but you must allow someone to guide you emotionally. Again his eyes drifted to Mireille, gentle but firm. She felt a cold sensation spread through her. They wanted her to help him confront the darkest parts of himself, the same parts that had destroyed her. Ao turned to her, breath shaking. Will you help me? Her heart twisted painfully. Ao, this isn't something small. It's not like holding your hand during a seizure. This means reopening everything. The worst memories, the years you hurt me. His face crumpled. I know. And I have no right to ask. But I'm asking anyway. She stared at him, unsure whether she was furious or heartbroken. I need you, he whispered. Not just to survive, but to become better. For real. Silence. Finally, Mireille inhaled deeply. We take it one step at a time, she said. If it becomes too much, we pause. Relief washed over Ao's face like sunlight breaking through clouds. The first session began that afternoon. Kamaru dimmed the lights and sat across from them. Ao lay back, slightly hooked to sensors, monitoring his neurological spikes. Mireille, the doctor, said gently, you will guide him through emotional recall, but only as far as he can manage. She nodded. Ao stared at her with childlike fear. Kamaru began. Ao, close your eyes. I want you to go back to a memory you've buried, something you fear, something heavy, but not the worst one yet. Ao's breath shuddered. His fingers twitched. Mireille immediately placed her hand on his. He squeezed it, desperate, shaking. I'm here, she murmured. Whatever you see, I'm here. Ao swallowed again and began. I remember. His voice faltered. The day I lost my first investor, I came home furious. I threw my laptop. I yelled at you because dinner was late. Mireille flinched. She remembered too. Describe how you felt, Kamaru instructed. I felt small, Ao whispered. Like a failure. Like the world was laughing at me. And when I saw her, calm, soft, kind, I hated myself even more. I took that out on her. I twisted my shame into anger. And how does your body feel remembering it? The doctor asked. Hot, he whispered. Tight. My chest is burning. The monitor beeped rapidly. Mireille leaned closer. Ao, look at me. His eyes opened, frantic. You're safe, she said softly. That's the past. Now breathe with me. He followed her breath, shaky at first, then slowly steady. The beeping calmed. Mireille brushed a tear from his cheek. You don't have to stay in that moment. Come back. He nodded, eyes closing. Kamaru smiled faintly. Good. Very good. This is how we unlearn the fear response. When the session ended, Ao was shaking like a leaf. That was horrible, he whispered. It's the beginning, Mireille said gently. He looked at her with eyes that held 1,000 unspoken regrets. I don't deserve you, he breathed again. She didn't answer, because part of her finally believed it. That night, after Ao fell asleep, Mireille stepped out onto the small balcony outside the hospital cafeteria. Her hands shook as she leaned on the railing. The emotional excavation had drained her. She didn't hear footsteps until someone cleared their throat softly. It was Dahlia, Ao's sister. Her eyes were red. Can I talk to you? Mireille stiffened. If it's more accusations, no, Dahlia cut in quickly. No more of that. She stepped closer, shame in her expression. I want to apologize. Mireille's breath caught. I treated you horribly, Dahlia continued. We all did. And watching Ao break down today, watching you hold him together, I realized something. Mireille waited. You were never the weak one, Dahlia whispered. You were the strongest person in the house. And we mistook silence for weakness. Mireille blinked rapidly. Dahlia wiped her eyes. If Ao survives this, it will be because of you, her voice cracked. But please, don't lose yourself in the process. With that, Dahlia stepped back and walked away. Mireille stared after her, stunned. The apology she never expected, the acknowledgement she never received before. But even that didn't ease the weight crushing her chest, because the truth remained, Saving Io meant reopening every wound he ever inflicted, and she wasn't sure how much more her heart could bleed. But she also wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. The next morning, the hospital air felt unusually heavy, as if the walls themselves sensed the emotional battles unfolding inside room 306. Murray sat near the window, her hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea. She had no intention of drinking. Her body ached with fatigue, but her mind refused to rest. She watched Ao sleeping his breaths, shallow, his eyelids fluttering with exhaustion. Even in rest, he looked frightened, like a man haunted from the inside out. When he finally stirred awake, he blinked slowly before focusing on her. "You didn't sleep," he whispered. She forced a small smile. "Neither did you." He swallowed. "I'm afraid to fall asleep sometimes. What if I don't wake up?" Her chest tightened. More and more she saw how deeply fear had carved into him. This man, once loud, confident, arrogant, was unraveling thread by thread, and he could no longer hide behind pride. "You will wake up," she said quietly. "You're fighting Ao, and I'm fighting with you." He reached out, his trembling fingers brushing hers. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." She didn't respond. She'd heard the words too many times now. They no longer stung, but they didn't soothe either. They simply hung between them, heavy and unresolved. Around midday, Dr. Kamaru returned for the second phase of memory stabilization. Io tensed the moment he saw the doctor enter. "Not today," he murmured. "Please, not today." Kamaru's tone softened. "I understand, but the first session proved your emotional triggers are directly tied to your physical decline. We cannot delay too long." Ao looked at Murray, silently begging for her to intervene. She exhaled, torn. "Io, this therapy is helping. Yesterday your episode subsided faster because you weren't fighting alone." He closed his eyes, wrestling with his fear. "I don't want to revisit the past. There are things I said to you. Things I did. I can't face them." "You already are," she whispered. His eyes opened again, filled with torment and shame. "Fine," he whispered shakily. "But stay close." Murray nodded, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. She took his hand. His grip was so weak it made her heart ache. Kamaru dimmed the lights. "Today, we go one layer deeper," he said. "Ao, I want you to recall a specific memory where your emotional reaction was overwhelming, one that your body hasn't forgotten." Ao stiffened. His breathing grew uneven. Murray stroked his knuckles gently. "I'm here." After several shaky breaths, Ao began. "I remember," his voice trembled. "The night I lost the Apex deal, I came home drunk. You tried to help me, but He stopped, tears rising. Kamaru said softly. "Go on." Ao shook his head. "I shouted at her. I said she was the reason our life was crumbling. I told her she was a curse. I threw a glass. It shattered near her feet." Muriel felt her throat tighten. She had forgotten that memory, or perhaps buried it so deeply she pretended it never happened. Ao pressed his palms to his temples. I saw the fear in her eyes, but I still kept shouting. I remember wanting to hurt something, anything, because I felt like a fraud. "What does your body feel now?" Kamaru asked. Ao's breathing spiked. "My chest is tight, my hands shaking. I feel hot, dizzy." The monitors beeped rapidly. Muriel cupped his face. "Ao, look at me." His eyes cracked open, wild panic drowning. "Breathe," she whispered. "In, out. Don't stay in that memory. You're here now. With me." Tears streamed down his cheeks. "I hurt you so much. You can't change the past," she whispered, though her voice quivered. "But you can face it." He sobbed softly, letting his forehead rest against her shoulder. Kamaru monitored the levels. "Good. His neurological activity is stabilizing. Keep grounding him." She whispered soothing phrases into his ear until the beeping slowed. His muscles softened. His tears subsided into quiet tremors. After the session, Ao lay drained, trembling in exhaustion. "That felt like being dragged through fire," he whispered weakly. "But you survived it," Murray murmured. He looked up at her with eyes filled with raw vulnerability. "I didn't deserve the way you comforted me." She looked away. His voice cracked. How did you keep loving me when I made you feel so small?" Her breath caught. "Ao, I didn't keep loving you the entire time." He froze. The words pierced him deeper than any memory had. She continued softly, painfully honest. "I loved the man I thought you could become, the one I believed you hid beneath all the anger. But the truth is, I stopped loving you long before you fell sick. I stayed because I didn't want to fail our marriage. I stayed because I hoped things might change. Tears filled Ayo's eyes. I destroyed your heart. You didn't destroy it, she said, but you made it shrink. He broke then, the kind of break that sounded like a quiet, muffled cry he tried to suppress. I'm so sorry, he whispered again. I'm sorry for killing the love you gave so freely. She reached out and stroked his cheek. Love can regrow, but only if it's nurtured, only if it's safe. He nodded, trembling. I want to make it safe. She didn't promise anything in return. That evening, Ayo's condition deteriorated again, but in a different way. Instead of violent tremors, his body grew cold. His speech slurred unpredictably. His balance worsened. The doctor rushed in, examining him urgently. Kamaru Mireya asked, panic gripping her. What's happening? Kamaru frowned. His system is exhausted from the emotional recall. It's common, but he needs rest. No more sessions for at least a day or two. But will he be okay? She whispered. Yes, the doctor said gently. As long as we keep him emotionally steady. Ayo's eyelids drooped. Mireya, stay. I'm not going anywhere. He relaxed at her voice, settling into sleep. Mireya stayed by his side, stroking his forehead. She watched him breathe. She watched his chest rise and fall, as if every breath was a negotiation with fate. As midnight approached, she felt a presence at the door. It was the nurse. You should rest a bit, the nurse said kindly. Even 15 minutes will help. Mireya shook her head. I'll rest later. You've said that every night for a week, the nurse reminded her gently. Mireya didn't answer. She simply returned her eyes to Ayo, watching his sleeping form with a mixture of tenderness, grief, and exhaustion. Around 3 a.m., Ayo suddenly stirred. His fingers twitched against the sheets. His breathing changed. Mireya, he murmured. She leaned forward. Yes, I'm here. His brows furrowed. I'm scared of waking up and finding you gone. Her heart clenched. I haven't left yet, have I? He shook his head weakly. I know I don't deserve for you to stay, but I don't know how to live without you anymore. Her eyes burned. Ayo. He took a shaky breath. When I'm with you, the chaos in my mind quiets. When I hear your voice, my body calms. You make me want to survive. She felt those words in her bones. Then he whispered something that shattered her completely. Please, don't give up on me again. She opened her mouth, but her voice failed her. Tears rolled down her cheeks silently. She took his hand and whispered only the truth she could offer. I haven't given up. But I'm still healing too. Ayo closed his eyes, nodding weakly. And as he drifted back to sleep, his fingers tightened around hers, not in dominance, not in entitlement, but in genuine fear of losing the one person who stood between him and the darkness. Later, as the quiet hours passed, Mireya sat alone with her thoughts. She looked at Ayo, broken, humbled, desperate, and she realized something terrifying. She didn't know if she still loved him, but she knew she couldn't let him die. And sometimes, that was enough to keep moving. For now, the next 2 days passed in a slow, fragile rhythm, like walking across thin ice while praying it wouldn't crack beneath their feet. Ayo's body was exhausted from the emotional therapy. His nerves were quieter, but also weaker. The medical team kept him under close watch, and Miro stayed near him every waking moment, gently supporting him through every tremor, every dizzy spell, every spike of fear. But today felt different. A strange tension lingered in the air, subtle, unsettling, as if the walls themselves sensed a shift coming. By late morning, Ayo tried to sit up on his own for the first time. I can help you, Mireya offered, stepping forward. He shook his head. Let me try. I need to feel capable of something again. He pushed himself up, his muscles trembling from the effort. His breath caught, but he managed to straighten. When he finally settled upright, a proud yet exhausted smile lifted the corner of his mouth. I did it, he whispered. Mireya smiled softly. You did. He held her gaze for a long moment. You give me strength I don't deserve. She didn't respond, but something warm flickered in her chest, something she didn't want to name yet. When lunchtime approached, Ayo's cousin Yomi visited. He brought documents, anxiously shifting in his seat. The board wants to vote by Friday, Yomi said. They're threatening to remove you as CEO if you don't show improvement. Ayo rubbed his temple, wincing. I can't even stand without trembling. How am I supposed to convince them I'm stable enough to lead? Yomi hesitated before adding, some board members think your collapse is embarrassing. They're using your sickness to push you out. Ayo's breathing quickened. His vision blurred. His hand twitched. Murray noticed immediately. Yomi, stop. What, I'm just telling him the truth. The truth can wait, she said, firmly steadying Ayo's shaking hands. Ayo blinked rapidly, fighting the wave of panic rising in him. Murray, he whispered, don't leave me. I'm right here, she murmured. He inhaled deeply, letting her voice pull him back from the edge. Yomi watched in disbelief. Wow, only you can calm him like that. Muriel didn't look at him. She continued holding Ayo's trembling hand, whispering quiet, grounding phrases until his breathing steadied. Yomi finally stood. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trigger anything. Murray nodded without looking at him. Just be careful. He left shaken. Ayo let out a shaky laugh. I never thought I'd see the day Yomi apologized to anyone. You must truly be a miracle worker. She glanced at him with tired eyes. I'm not a miracle. I'm just doing what needs to be done. He looked at her with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. Something between awe and regret. Around 3 p.m., Ayo's condition suddenly changed. At first it was subtle, his left hand twitching, his breath slightly uneven. Then a wave of dizziness washed over him, and he grasped the bed rail tightly. Ayo Maria stood immediately. I can't focus, he whispered. She guided him down gently, helping him lie flat. But the trembling didn't stop. It grew worse. Dr. Kamaru rushed in moments later. What happened? He was fine a minute ago, Murray said, voice tight. Then he just collapsed. Kamaru checked Ayo's reflexes, breathing pupils. His forehead creased. His immune system has triggered another attack. This one is strong. Ayo groaned, clutching his head. Everything's spinning. The tremors intensified. The monitors beeped erratically. The nurses hurried around the bed, adjusting equipment, preparing medication. Murray stood frozen, but only for a moment. Then instinct took over. She climbed onto the side of the bed, cupping his face firmly. Ayo, listen to me. Focus on me. Not the pain, not the noise. Me. His eyes fluttered open, wild, desperate. Murray, don't go. I'm right here, she whispered, voice trembling yet steady. I'm not moving. But nothing she did seemed to help this time. His entire body shook violently, his breath shortened into frantic gasps. Kamaru's voice cut through the chaos. We need to break the panic cycle. Murray, you must trigger a grounding memory, something he associates with survival, something only you would know. Her mind raced, then she remembered something buried deep. When Ayo was a child, his grandmother used to calm his night terrors by placing a warm palm on his forehead and humming a specific melody. He once told Murray the story years ago during a rare, tender moment before burying the memory again under layers of pride. She didn't waste another second. She placed her palm over his sweating forehead, and she hummed the melody. Soft, trembling, but familiar. Ayo's body jerked violently, recognition, sparking somewhere deep within him. His breathing stuttered. The tremors slowed. His eyes locked on hers with a mix of disbelief and desperate yearning. Murray, he whispered, voice breaking. How did you remember that? She felt her own tears fall onto his cheeks. Because I listened to you, even when you thought no one cared. His whole body shuddered once more, then softened, completely collapsing back into the pillows as the worst of the episode passed. The monitors calmed. The nurses exhaled. Kamaru stepped back, visibly relieved. Incredible. Murray, that probably saved his life. She trembled as adrenaline left her body. Ayo lay weak, drenched in sweat, breathing unsteadily but alive. His hand searched for hers. She took it without hesitation. He began to cry, quiet, broken sobs of a man whose soul had cracked open. I thought I was going to die, he choked. You didn't, she whispered. You saved me again. Her voice quivered. You saved yourself. I just helped you remember how. Ayo closed his eyes, still holding her hand tightly. Kamaru approached her quietly. That memory response, Murray, he trusts you on a level deeper than consciousness. You are his neurological anchor. She nodded weakly, though the weight of that truth pressed down heavily on her. After the doctor left, Ayo slowly turned his head toward her. Murray, he whispered, voice raw. I have treated you terribly. I took your kindness for granted. I broke your spirit. But every time you hold me when I fall, I feel something I haven't felt in years. She blinked. What he swallowed. Hope. Her breath caught. He continued, I don't deserve a second chance. But if I ever recover, if fate gives me even one more day to live without this pain, I promise I will spend every moment becoming a man worthy of you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Ayo. He squeezed her hand weakly. I'm not asking you to love me right now. Or ever again. I just want you to know that you were never useless. You were the only thing in my life that had real meaning. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed. He whispered one last time before drifting into exhausted sleep. You're the reason I'm still alive. And as she sat there watching him breathe, she realized something with terrifying clarity. She wasn't just saving his life. She was becoming the reason he wanted to fight for it. For the first time since his collapse, Ao slept through most of the night without a violent tremor. The nurses tiptoed in and out, whispering in awe that his body had finally loosened, a sign they said that something inside him was beginning to heal. But Mireille did not sleep. She sat on the small sofa, knees pulled to her chest, watching him breathe in the dim glow of the monitor. Her mind spun with memories both beautiful and bruising of their life together. His arrogance, his cruelty, his rare moments of softness. And now, his desperate vulnerability, the way he clung to her voice like it was the only light left in his darkness. Dawn began to seep through the curtains when Ao stirred awake, blinking slowly. Mireille, his voice was hoarse. She rose immediately. I'm here, he exhaled, shakily, relief softening his features. I had a dream last night, but for once it wasn't a nightmare. What was it? She asked gently. I dreamt of us, he whispered. Before everything fell apart, he paused, struggling to find words. You were smiling in the dream. Not the tired smile you give me now. A real smile. The one I didn't realize I'd stolen from you. Her heart clenched. She looked away. Ao watched her with a tenderness she wasn't used to, soft, fragile, grateful. She wasn't sure how to receive it. A few hours later, Kamaru arrived with new updates. He studied Ao's chart, examining neurological responses, then nodded. You are stabilizing faster than I expected, he said. But your stress response is still highly sensitive. Any emotional shock could undo this progress. Ao glanced at Mireille nervously. Kamaru continued, we will continue therapy tomorrow. Today I want your mind to remain calm. Your wife will help regulate your stress levels. Ao squeezed Mireille's hand gently, silently thanking her. But when Kamaru left the room, leaving them alone, the silence grew heavy. Ao cleared his throat. There's something I need to say before the next session. Something I've avoided for too many years. She turned to him cautiously. He took a deep breath. Mireille, you need to know the whole truth about why I turned so cruel. Her shoulders tensed. She wasn't sure she wanted to hear it, but she nodded, bracing herself. He swallowed. It didn't start with you, it started with me. She blinked, confused. When I was 16, he said slowly, I watched my father collapse in our living room. A stroke. He survived, but he was never the same. Weak, helpless, bitter. He pushed everyone away, especially my mother. Mireille's heart softened, but she remained silent. Ao continued, voice fragile. My mother would cry every night, thinking I couldn't hear. She wasn't crying because she lost her husband. She cried because she suddenly had to care for a man who hated needing her. A man who saw weakness as humiliation. His hand trembled in hers. And I swore I would never become him. Never be weak. Never depend on anyone. Never allow myself to love so deeply that I could crumble. A tear slipped down his cheek. But then, I met you. Her chest tightened. You were everything a person like me wasn't prepared for. Kind, soft, giving, open-hearted. You made me feel things I didn't know how to handle. He looked away, ashamed. So instead of learning from you, I tried to control you, to harden you, to make you smaller so I wouldn't feel so inferior beside you. Mireille sucked in a sharp breath. Hearing the truth hurt more than the insults ever did. And every time you stayed, he whispered, I mistook your kindness for submission. I mistook your forgiveness for weakness, until I became the very thing I feared. He wiped his eyes shakily. I became my father. The silence that followed felt like the air before a storm. Mireille finally found her voice. Ao, you can't use your past to justify hurting others. I'm not justifying it, he said quickly. I'm explaining it, because I need you to understand that every cruel thing I did came from a broken place in me, not because you were lacking. She felt tears rising. I spent years believing I wasn't enough. You were more than enough, he whispered. I just wasn't capable of loving you the way you deserved. The words shattered her. Not with pain this time, but with truth that finally felt real. Later that day, Io received another unexpected visitor, his mother. Odette entered the room tentatively, her arrogance dimmed, her shoulders tense. She froze upon seeing Murray sitting beside Io, holding his hand. Ao's eyes hardened slightly. "Mama," Odette hesitated. "Ao, I came to check on you." He stared at her without expression. "Did you?" She flinched, silence stretched. Then in a voice trembling with something Murray had never heard before, something resembling humility, Odette said, "I was wrong." Ao blinked. Murray froze. Odette looked directly at Murray. "I misjudged you. I treated you unfairly. I supported Ao's worst behaviors. I made you feel unwanted in your own home." She swallowed hard. "You have shown more strength in these weeks than I have shown in my entire life." Mireille stared stunned. "Ao," whispered Mama. What changed? Odette's eyes glazed with unshed tears. "Watching you almost die changed me." She turned to Mireille again. "I'm sorry. It wasn't much. But from Odette, it was monumental." Mireille nodded slowly, not ready to forgive, but willing to acknowledge the effort. Ao exhaled shakily, overwhelmed. An hour later, after Odette left, Ao said quietly, "I never thought I'd hear my mother apologize to you." Mireille shrugged weakly. "Maybe illness humbles everyone." He studied her carefully. "And what about you, Mireille? Will you ever forgive me?" The question dropped like a stone between them. She looked at him, really looked. At the man lying fragile beneath white sheets. At the man who had once belittled her. At the man who was now unraveling, honest, desperate, and trying. "I don't know," she whispered. "Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a journey." His face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Then let me take that journey with you." She inhaled shakily. "You need to heal first." And after he asked softly, her eyes darted away. "We'll see." His hand tightened around hers. "That's more than I deserve." She didn't answer. That evening, just before sunset, Ao suddenly tried to sit up straighter, his eyes focusing with surprising clarity. "Mireille," he said firmly, "there's something I need to do." "What? Something I should have done long ago." Before she could stop him, he reached for the call button and asked for a nurse to bring a phone. When it arrived, he dialed a number with trembling fingers. Mireille watched, puzzled. The call connected. Ao's voice wavered. "Hello. This is Ao Chisom." "Yes. I want to speak at tomorrow's board meeting. Even if it has to be virtual, I won't let fear silence me anymore." Mireille's eyes widened. The nurse looked equally shocked. Ao ended the call, exhausted but resolute. "You shouldn't push yourself so hard," she said, worried. "If I'm going to rebuild my life," he murmured, "I need to start with courage and honesty. You taught me that." Her breath caught. He reached for her hand again. "Mireille, you saved my life. Now let me try to become a man worthy of surviving." She didn't speak, but this time, she didn't pull her hand away either. The morning of the board meeting arrived with a hush that felt almost sacred. The hospital room was dim lit only by a pale ray of sunlight cutting across the floor. Mireille helped Ao sit up against the pillows, adjusting them carefully so he could breathe comfortably. His muscles were still weak, but his eyes, though tired, held a new steadiness. "You don't have to do this," she murmured gently, smoothing the collar of his hospital shirt. "I do," he replied, voice low but sure. "Not to keep the company, but to face the consequences of who I was." She paused, looking at him closely. The Io she once knew would have walked into that boardroom full of arrogance and pride. The man in front of her now was humbled, yet stronger in a different way. A nurse wheeled in a small table where a laptop had been set up. The board members were waiting online. The meeting would last no more than 15 minutes. Any stress longer than that risked triggering another neurological episode. Mireille stood behind Ao, hands resting lightly on the back of his chair. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. He took a shaky breath. "Only if you are." The screen flickered to life. A group of stern faces filled the display. Directors, investors, advisors. Some looked concerned. Others looked irritated. A few wore thinly veiled expressions of superiority. Ao cleared his throat. "Good morning." Some nodded stiffly. One man, a senior director, leaned forward. "Mr. Chisom, we agreed to this meeting as a courtesy. The board is still prepared to move forward without you. Your health incident has created instability." Ao lifted a trembling hand. "I'm not here to argue." That startled them. Silence. He continued, voice steadier than expected. "I'm here to tell you the truth. Something I should have done a long time ago." He inhaled slowly. Mireille placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. The trembling in his fingers eased. I lost control of myself, Ao said, eyes shifting across the screen. Not just physically, emotionally, mentally. I let pride guide my decisions. I refused to listen. I dismissed concerns. I became a tyrant without realizing it. The board exchanged surprised glances. And the collapse of our last deal, that wasn't a stroke of bad luck. It was the consequence of my arrogance. More murmurs. Ao continued, if I lose my position today, I'll accept it. Not because I'm incapable, but because leadership requires humility, something I lacked. The room fell silent again. Then he said something that made Mireille's breath catch. But I also want to tell you this, I'm fighting. I'm healing. I'm learning to become a man worth following, not by force, but by integrity. Ao paused, his breath hitching. Mireille squeezed his shoulder gently. He steadied. And if I'm given another chance, he said, voice trembling with sincerity, I'll rebuild trust the right way. Slowly, transparently, not as the man I was, but as the man I'm becoming. A long silence followed. Finally, one woman cleared her throat. Mr. Chisholm, I didn't expect such honesty. We'll reconvene and discuss our decision. Another nodded. Your humility today, it speaks volumes. Rest, Ao, another said. Your health comes first. One by one, the screens blinked off. When the last light disappeared, Ao slumped back, utterly drained. Mireille quickly knelt beside him. Are you okay? He took several deep breaths. Yes, because you were here. Her heart tugged painfully. You did that by yourself, Ao. No, he whispered, reaching for her hand. I did it because you held me together long enough to try. She didn't argue. She didn't know if she could. He slept most of the afternoon, the emotional effort having drained him to the bone. Mireille sat beside him, brushing her fingers lightly across his knuckles. She hadn't intended to touch him yet. Her hand drifted there unconsciously, as though drawn by something she didn't want to name. In his sleep, his fingers curled faintly around hers. Not gripping, not clinging, just reaching. She felt something inside her chest shift, subtle, fragile, frightening. When he woke later, he found her still beside him. You stayed, he murmured. I told you I would, she replied quietly. He gazed at her with something like awe. I used to think strength meant never bending, never needing anyone. And now she asked. And now, he whispered, I think strength looks a lot like you. Her throat tightened. She looked away. Ao's voice dropped to a tremble. I want to ask for your forgiveness, Mireille. But I won't, not yet. She blinked, startled. Why? Because I haven't earned the right to ask for it. Not while I'm still healing. Not while your heart still carries bruises I caused. She stared at him, unsure what to say. He continued, You don't owe me your love. You don't owe me your marriage. But the fact that you're here, that you keep choosing to help me when you could have walked away, he swallowed hard. It humbles me more than this illness ever has. A tear slid down her cheek, unexpected quiet. Ao reached up weakly. May I? He asked, gesturing toward her cheek. She hesitated, then nodded. His fingertips brushed her skin, lightly trembling against her tear. I'm so sorry I ever made you cry for reasons that weren't worthy of you, he whispered. Her breath hitched. She cupped his hand gently against her cheek. Ao, I don't know what the future holds. I'm not asking for the future, he murmured. I'm asking for the chance to keep trying. The sincerity in his voice cracked her open in a way she hadn't expected. I'm tired, Ao, she whispered. So tired, I know, he said, and I'm not asking you to carry me anymore. Let me learn to stand again. Not as your burden, but as your equal. The room fell silent. Then slowly, cautiously, Mireille moved closer, not quite embracing him, but close enough that their foreheads met. It was the first intimacy they'd shared in years. Soft, fragile, painful, and real. His breath shuddered against her skin. Thank you, he whispered, for holding the parts of me I thought were unworthy of love. She closed her eyes. For the first time, she saw not the man who broke her, but the man who was trying to rebuild himself piece by piece. She didn't love him fully, not yet, but something inside her, a spark she thought had died, began to flicker again. And that scared her more than anything. When she finally pulled back, Ao reached for her hand again. What about us? He asked softly. We'll take it slowly, she whispered, one step at a time. His breath trembled with relief. Then that's enough for me. And in that small, quiet moment, their broken marriage took its first fragile step toward healing. Not healed, not forgiven, but no longer hopeless. The following week unfolded like a long, careful exhale, slow, deliberate, and threaded with quiet hope. Ayo's body responded steadily to the treatments. His tremors lessened. His speech grew clearer. His memory lapses became less frequent. The medical staff marveled at how quickly he stabilized once the emotional storm subsided. But everyone knew the real anchor behind his recovery was the woman who sat by his side day and night, Mireille. Every morning she greeted him with a gentle, "Good morning," her voice calm even when exhaustion painted shadows under her eyes. Every afternoon she guided him through breathing exercises, sometimes holding his trembling hands for long, silent minutes. Every evening she read to him softly, her presence grounding him more effectively than any medication. But as Ayo healed, a different storm brewed inside Mireille. One, she tried to hide behind tired smiles and steady hands. The storm of questions. What would happen when he fully recovered? Would he revert to the man he used to be? Could she trust the change she saw? Was her heart capable of loving him again? Fully, not just out of compassion. Every time she felt his eyes lingering. On her, full of gratitude and longing, her chest tightened with both hope and fear. The path ahead was still uncertain. One afternoon, after a gentle physiotherapy session, Ayo looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen since the early days of their marriage, soft, tender, reverent. "Mireille," he said quietly, "I want to try walking." She blinked. "Walking, Ayo? You're not strong enough. Your balance." "I know," he interrupted softly, "but I need to start somewhere. And I want you beside me." His sincerity pierced her. She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, one step at a time." She helped him swing his legs over the side of the bed. He gripped her hand tightly, his fingers trembling but determined. Slowly, painfully slowly, he pushed himself onto his feet. His legs shook beneath him. His breath caught. But he stood. Ayo's eyes filled with tears. "I haven't stood unaided since before the worst of this started." "You're doing it now," she whispered. He took one step, then another. Mireille remained pressed against his side, guiding him gently, her hand firm around his waist. After 4 shaky steps, he sank into a nearby chair, breathless but smiling through tears. "I couldn't have done that without you," he whispered. She looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "You're the one who stood. I just made sure you didn't fall." His gaze searched hers, deep and earnest. "You've always done that, long before I understood the value of it." She didn't answer, but her silence held more truth than words. The day before his scheduled discharge, the children from the charity center surprised Mireille with a visit. They arrived carrying handmade cards, colorful drawings, and little clay sculptures. "Mama Mireille," they shouted, rushing into her arms. Her heart swelled, the first pure happiness she'd felt in weeks. Ayo watched from his bed, emotional at the sight. The children adored her. They clung to her dress, asked her stories, handed her gifts. One little girl, Kessie, approached Ayo shyly. "Are you the husband who was sick?" Ayo nodded gently. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm getting better." She tilted her head. "Did Mama Mireille make you better?" His throat tightened. He glanced at Mireille, then back at Kessie. "Yes," he said, voice thick. "She saved me." Kessie beamed and skipped away. Mireille froze at the admission. Ayo met her eyes, soft, honest, vulnerable. "She asked a simple question," he said gently. "I gave her the truth." Mireille looked down, overwhelmed. When the children left, Ayo turned to her. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." She braced herself. About what? About us? About what comes after I leave this hospital? Her pulse quickened. "Ayo, we don't have to rush anything." "I'm not trying to rush," he said quickly. "I just want to be honest." She swallowed. "All right." Ayo took a shaky breath. "I know I hurt you in ways I can never undo. I know I shattered the trust you gave me so freely. And I know healing your heart won't happen just because I'm sorry." She felt her eyes sting. "But I want to try," he whispered. "Not to force you to love me again, not to earn some reward, but because I want to be the kind of man who deserves your kindness, not feeds on it." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Mireille, I want to rebuild our marriage, but I want to do it the right way, slowly, carefully, with your boundaries, with your voice, not my pride." She wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. "Ayo, I'm scared," he nodded. "So am I. But healing is scary, love is scary, and losing you forever would be the scariest thing of all." She looked at him, really looked. This was not the arrogant man she once lived with. This was someone humbled, wounded, reshaped by suffering, someone learning to love instead of command, someone who finally saw her. "I don't know where this will lead," she whispered. He squeezed her hand. "Then walk with me, not as my wife, not as my savior, but as the person who knows my soul better than I do. And if I fall," she whispered, "then I'll hold your hand until we both stand," he murmured. Her tears fell freely. "Okay," she whispered, "we'll walk slowly." His eyes filled with gratitude so deep it shook her. "Thank you," he breathed. 2 weeks later, Ao stood at the entrance of the charity center beside Mireille. He wore a light jacket, leaning on a cane, still recovering but standing tall in a way he hadn't in months. The children cheered when they saw them running around with laughter. Ao smiled, a real unguarded smile. "Mireille," he said softly, "I have something for you." She turned surprised as he held out an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a document titled Proposal, the Mireille Chizom Foundation for Children. Her breath caught. Ao said quietly, "I want to fund your dream. A real center, bigger, better, with resources, staff. Everything you need to change lives the way you've changed mine." Her hands shook. "Ao, I'm not offering it as repayment," he said, "or guilt. I'm offering it because this world needs your heart in it. And because I want my second chance to begin with something good." She couldn't speak. He stepped closer. "And whatever happens between us," he whispered, "I want your dreams to finally live." Her chest cracked open with emotion. "Ao," he smiled softly. "Slow steps." "Remember," she nodded, tears falling. And under the warm sun, surrounded by children, in hope they took their first step together, not back into the past, but into a new beginning. One built not on pain or power, but on choice, respect, redemption, and the fragile possibility of new love. True strength is not found in pride or power, but in humility, the courage to face our brokenness and change. Ao's story reminds us that unhealed wounds can turn even good people into sources of pain, but healing becomes possible when we confront our past with honesty and allow compassion to guide us forward. And Mireille teaches us that kindness is not weakness. It is the quiet power that can save, restore, and reshape lives. Yet even kindness must be balanced with self-respect. Healing is a journey shared, not carried alone. What was your favorite moment in this story? Share your thoughts and your location in the comments. I'd love to hear from our global family. If you enjoy emotional African folktale dramas, consider subscribing to the channel for more powerful stories every week.